That's right, because we just launched a Coinbase Wrapped XRP market a couple of weeks ago, and we already have a few $100,000 of XRP supplied now as collateral, and now they can borrow stablecoins against that. And Ripple is a great example of, they're a top 5 crypto asset. There is probably billions of XRP.
This episode is brought to you by Propy, which is leading the charge in putting real estate on chain. Propy is a game changer. You can buy and sell real estate with cryptocurrencies using the Propy platform, which is powered by a blockchain, of course, and they have a native token called Pro. And I've been an investor in the Propy token since 2018. So Propy is a licensed Web3 pioneer operating since 2017. They have facilitated over $4 billion in transactions. They're putting titles and deeds on chain. They use Coinbase for their crypto escrow service. So this is a great platform. And once again, they are ahead of the curve when it comes to putting real estate on chain. And they just launched a great campaign where you can earn some of the Propy tokens. And it's simply by doing tasks such as sharing their vision video, signing up and inviting a friend, and much more. So if you'd like to learn more about Propy, visit the link in the description. Hey everybody, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and joining me is Luke Youngblood, who's the founder of Moonwell. Luke, great to have you on.
It's great to be here, Tony. Thank you for having me as well. I'm excited to talk to you about Moonwell.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke, you and I met at the Coinbase State of Crypto Summit, a few weeks back or so. And Luke, you have an incredible pedigree in the crypto market. You helped to build staking at Coinbase and much more. And Moonwell is doing some amazing things with Coinbase with lending, cbAssets. And I've got a ton of questions around all the cool things you guys are doing. But let's kick it off with your background. Tell us about yourself and your professional background.
Sounds good. So I'm a software engineer by trade. I've been working in big tech for companies like Amazon Web Services for a few decades now. And I first got into crypto when I was mining Bitcoin as a hobby in the 2010s. I was a hobbyist and just doing software engineering during my day job, but I'd leave my gaming PC on at night and mine a little bit of Bitcoin. I thought it was this really awesome magic internet money experiment, but I didn't get into crypto professionally until about 2018. And what brought me in was I got contacted. My brother was also early in the Ethereum community. He was in the Ethereum ICO, and I got contacted by Arthur and Kathleen Brightman, the founders of the Tezos network. And they wanted me to build proof of stake infrastructure for the Tezos Foundation. So in 2018, my brother and I, because I had experience working at AWS, the cloud company, we built some cutting edge proof of stake infrastructure that used hardware security modules to stake for, billions of dollars of Tezos and help the Tezos network launch. Then fast forward 6 months later, Coinbase reached out to me and they wanted to acqui-hire my 2-person startup, which was called Blockscale. And long story short, I came to Coinbase in 2019 and launched Ethereum staking rewards, and then as well as Cosmos and Tezos and a bunch of other networks. Today, 6 years later, that product is over $1 billion annualized run rate. They call it network rewards, and it includes sequencer fees on Base as well as staking for Solana, Ethereum, and a bunch of other big networks. So it was a really fun experience to kind of come to Coinbase. Spent 3 years there. I had a lot of really memorable experiences launching products there as the lead engineer. And then 3.5 years into it, I decided I wanted to go launch on-chain products because I had kind of mastered the experience of launching CeFi products that held tens of billions of dollars securely. And I was really into staking and all the ways that you could earn more crypto. So I left Coinbase in early 22 to launch Moonwell. And Moonwell, I wanted to create the easiest to use lending and borrowing app, because as an early Bitcoiner and early to Ethereum, I understood how Bitcoiners want to borrow stablecoins against their crypto and not sell. Because most of us that are early Bitcoiners are still holding or still have some Bitcoin. I wish I had more. But that was kind of what brought me to Moonwell, or to found Moonwell 3.5 years ago. So my company, Lunar Labs, is the core contributor to Moonwell. And today, we're just approaching, by the end of this month, we'll be about 20 engineers and designers and product people and marketing communications. We've grown to be quite large. And it's been a really exciting 3.5 years. We were day one launch on Base, August 9th, 2023. Jesse Pollack told me that he was going to launch Base a few months earlier because when I left Coinbase, he was building a DAO incubator. They were trying to figure out how to launch token projects at Coinbase. And it turns out it's hard for Coinbase to launch token products for obvious reasons. There's regulatory risk there. But to his credit, Jesse built this beautiful platform called Base so that Coinbase alumni like me that wanted to launch on-chain products could kind of come back to the mothership, if you will, launch products like Moonwell, and kind of grow to be part of this new on-chain economy. So we've been building Moonwell for 3.5 years now, having the blast. It's a lot more fun to build on-chain products. And I think our entire team draws from that early experience of building CeFi products at Coinbase. We're all about helping people earn more with their crypto or do more with their crypto.
That's incredible, Luke. What a journey from mining Bitcoin to helping Coinbase, the largest exchange in the United States, to build staking. And as you mentioned, how that's grown significantly, and then launching Moonwell. And now Coinbase is using Moonwell's services, so to speak, and you're powering a lot of the DeFi activities on Coinbase, right?
That's right. So let's talk about the Coinbase Borrow product because that's a pretty exciting thing that just launched in January of this year. So if any of your viewers are familiar with Morpho is a brand new lending primitive, and it's a smart contract system developed by Morpho Labs, an amazing team out of Paris. And the thing that's interesting about Morpho is that it's the first sort of immutable governance minimized lending and money markets, right? In the past, you have products like Uniswap, which have this property where anyone can create a pool with any token, and it will live forever on the world computer as long as Ethereum is operating, right? And so that's kind of the same thing with Morpho, where anyone can create a lending pool, a money market, if you will, with any token as a collateral asset and any token as a borrowable asset. And so when Coinbase was brainstorming, how do we launch an on-chain borrow product so that our customers that hold Bitcoin on platform, there's probably tens of billions of dollars of Bitcoin in cold storage, if not hundreds of billions. Those people can borrow against their Bitcoin. People like me that don't want to sell their Bitcoin, they just want to get US dollars and maybe go shopping, maybe buy gifts for their family, get leverage on their Bitcoin for advanced traders, that type of use case. So initially, they were going to use money markets that are similar to ours, our core markets, right, which are very similar to Compound or Aave. It's a multi-collateral market where you can supply any crypto like Coinbase Wrapped Bitcoin or Coinbase ETH, and then borrow a stablecoin or any other asset against it. Now, the risk with those is that those multi-collateral lending markets, while they offer really advanced tools for traders and people that are early to DeFi like me, they have a changing surface area and they have active governance because you need risk management. And the problem with building a CeFi product on top of that, it's like building a house on sand. If the collateral factor or the loan to value, that's a nerdy term, but it means how much can I borrow against my Bitcoin? It might be 85 cents on the dollar. If that changes from 85 cents to 80 cents because there's market volatility, that could cause a lot of Coinbase's millions of retail customers to have a bad day where all of a sudden their loan is underwater and they might get liquidated. Yep. So building on top of an actively governed lending protocol is hard, but Morpho, because it's governance minimized and it's immutable, like Uniswap, when the Morpho team deployed the Coinbase Bitcoin USD coin market, where Coinbase Bitcoin borrowers can supply wrapped Bitcoin from cold storage while their Bitcoin remains in cold storage, and then borrow USD coin against it. That market has, I believe it's a 86% loan to value. And that will never change as long as that market exists. And so that gives Coinbase the confidence that they can put, billions of dollars of wrapped customer Bitcoin into that market on chain, on Base. And what they're actually doing is creating a smart wallet, a passkey wallet for each customer. So each customer has their own dedicated on-chain wallet, whether they realize it or not. It's part of the retail app experience. It just works in the background like many Coinbase products do. And then they can now borrow USD coin against it. It automatically goes back to their Coinbase account. And from there, they can simply off-ramp it to their bank or whatever financial institution they use. So that experience is a really magical experience. And where Moonwell comes in is that over the last 6 months since June of 2024, our protocol, our DAO, has basically elected to curate what we call the Moonwell flagship USDC vault. Okay, and this vault is designed to be the most conservative in the sense that it only supplies into the Coinbase Wrapped Bitcoin and Ethereum markets. And the reason for that is because we wanted people that are depositing in that vault, that are providing that borrowable USD coin liquidity for the Coinbase Bitcoin borrowers, to have confidence that they're only being borrowed against by Coinbase Wrapped assets in the most secure cold storage system in the world. There's a reason why all of the Bitcoin ETF issuers use Coinbase for custody. It's because they've built this beautiful cold storage solution that I got to see when I worked there. There's a Wired magazine article from 2018, something, if you Google Coinbase cold storage, you'll find it. But it talks about how it was built. And that's the only system I've seen that can secure hundreds of billions of dollars of crypto from, nation and state level bad actors. And so you have that level of Coinbase security, and then you have the Moonwell and Morpho immutable contracts kind of supplying that borrowable USD coin on the other side of the equation, if that makes sense.
That's a game changer. And I remember speaking to the other Coinbase folks, and they were talking about this, borrow and lending program. And I'm personally, looking to use that as a Bitcoin holder. Like you, I don't want to sell all of it, but if I can borrow against it to use it to do upgrades to my house or whatever it may be, I'm definitely going to do that. And obviously Coinbase as a company, I definitely trust the company, the brand, and so forth. And like I said, I think this is a game changer, and it just opens up some new opportunities to long-term holders of crypto assets like Bitcoin. Now, you mentioned you're primarily supporting or built on Base and Ethereum, so there's not necessarily plans to go beyond that to, let's say, Solana or other chains?
Not currently. Today we're deployed on Base mainnet and OP mainnet, and those are the two layer twos that we're deployed on today. However, we are developing this feature that will land sometime this summer, and we call it Beam. And what this feature allows us to do, we've had half the engineering team at Moonwell working on this feature for the last several months. We realized that we could actually on-ramp ETH and USD Coin and other assets, Bitcoin, from other Ethereum networks to Base, and we don't have to deploy on mainnet Ethereum, right? Because mainnet Ethereum, while it does have most of the DeFi liquidity today, our thesis is that with the passage of the Genius Act, $2 trillion or more of stablecoin liquidity will on-ramp to Base, and most likely Base will be the center of that liquidity because of the Coinbase on-ramps and off-ramps. As the Genius Act passes, we've seen this quote from Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. What he said was that the combined market cap of stablecoins globally is about $250 billion today. It's mostly Tether and Circle's USD coin. But after the passage of the Genius Act, which looks very likely to happen, that would grow to $2 trillion in the next few years. And that is an eye-watering number. But you can see this happening because every bank in the world has just announced that they want to have their own stablecoin. Once they are legal, we move from being like the crypto economy to just the economy. And because these stablecoins like USD Coin basically offer digital dollars that can be settled instantly across borders with very low fees or almost non-existent fees, they're very attractive to banks like Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase. The two biggest banks in the United States have announced they're going to launch a stablecoin.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know if they'll use Circles or if they'll launch their own, but all the banks want to do this. And so we see the opportunity of building, the largest centered liquidity to provide, borrowable leverage of USD Coin against other crypto assets like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, and even the new Coinbase Wrapped assets like XRP, Cardano, Doge even, and Litecoin. Those just launched.
Yeah, that's exciting. I was going to ask you about those, the XRP, Cardano, and so forth. So it looks like you can add a lot of these wrapped assets or build them for the most liquid assets out there, right? The top altcoins.
That's right, because we just launched a Coinbase Wrapped XRP market a couple of weeks ago, and we already have a few $100,000 of XRP supplied now as collateral, and now they can borrow stablecoins against that. And Ripple is a great example of, they're a top 5 crypto asset. There is probably billions of XRP just held in cold storage on Coinbase because a lot of people like yourself have probably just bought it years ago and just hold it in their Coinbase account because they know it's secure. And now they can actually keep it in cold storage and get leverage against it and borrow stablecoins. So Imagine how many, billions of dollars of XRP holders might want to borrow stablecoins, kind of thing. I like your analogy of the home equity line of credit. You might want to do some upgrades on your house, maybe get a new bathroom or something. Why pay cash from your paycheck when you can just borrow against a crypto coin? You might have been growing in your portfolio for several years now. And I think this is going to be really compelling to a lot of Coinbase customers. That's why we've been building Moonwell for the last 3.5 years. Just we wanted to be ready because we know that lending and borrowing crypto is a new thing to most retail crypto users, but it's also one of the most compelling real world use cases that exist for crypto because people understand now that stable coins are actually digital dollars and they can transfer across borders with zero fees, right? So a lot of our users in South America, Latin America, Africa, parts of Asia, they just appreciate the fact that they can send stablecoins to their friends, their family, or transact in stablecoins with zero fees. We have gas sponsorship by Coinbase, so it's literally free to just send $100 to your relatives in another country back home. No Western Union MoneyGram fee, and that's very disruptive to the traditional financial system. And that's why all the banks want to adopt it.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to ask like a dumb question here, but I want to make sure I break it down in simple terms for people where this is completely new to them. So let's say you take some of my Bitcoin, I put it in the program on Coinbase, and I get the USDC, right, for the money I need to upgrade my house. Is it similar to a traditional loan where there's a term, like whether it's 60, well, I should say what, like 3 years or whatever it is, right? And is there an interest rate? And is it monthly payments? Very similar to the traditional way?
So it's very different. It's a great question. And what makes it different is it's more similar to a margin loan against your stock you might get from a brokerage.
Mm.
The difference is with margin, most retail investors can't get access to margin unless you're a high net worth individual and accredited investor. Your broker probably won't give you margin, or if they will, it's hard to use. You have to know how to ask for it. Some cases, I think they even make me take a test saying, how sophisticated are you? Are you a conservative investor? Margin is usually only used by hedge funds and high net worth individuals, family offices, right? But with the beautiful thing about on-chain finance, and this is why I love apps like Moonwell, is that you can supply your Bitcoin collateral on Coinbase, and you can borrow USD coin against it. The typical rate might be fluctuating around 7 to 8%. So it's a bit higher than like a mortgage, but it's way lower than a credit card or some normal financial product.
Sure.
Now, when you borrow the stablecoins against it, there's no fixed term. It's all originated by smart contract systems, and you can kind of think of it as a peer-to-peer lending system, right? In order to borrow, I have to supply something that's more value. So in order to borrow in order to borrow up to 86 cents of USD coin, I have to supply $1 of Bitcoin. And the smart contract system allows products like Moonwell and Coinbase's Borrow product that integrates with it, and Morpho, the kind of immutable contract it's built on top of. These systems can originate thousands or potentially millions of loans in a single day with no humans, because the smart contracts codify that if you want to withdraw your Bitcoin, you have to repay your loan first, right?
Mm.
And what that also allows is that there's no commitment. You can do a loan for a few minutes or a few hours or a few years.
Mm.
There's no monthly payments. What happens is the interest just accrues. And so as long as you don't accrue so much interest that you're now underwater, like you're above that 86 cents on the dollar, you can just repay on your own terms, which is really powerful.
Wow.
And this is the thing that was interesting to me is I never knew this system existed because I've just worked 9 to 5 jobs as a software engineer most of my life. But when I was at Coinbase and they went public during the DPO, all of a sudden I was able to get margin against my coin stock because it was, our options they were now held at Morgan Stanley and ShareWorks. I didn't even know this world existed until like 2021. But in the last, 4 years or so, I realized that this is another thing that inspired me to build Moonwell, is that these are the tools that only the ultra wealthy, like, the Bill Gates, the Elon Musks of the world, they can borrow against their stock, the Jensen Huangs, they can borrow against NVIDIA stock, and they can just buy houses or cars or whatever they want to without paying taxes until they actually sell the stock. And then because it's a margin loan, it's open terms, you don't even have to make monthly payments.
Mm.
as long as you have plenty of collateral. And so this world of finance for the ultra high net worth, the wealthy, on-chain finance products like Moonwell and Morpho bring that to everybody. You can have $10. You can be living in Latin America, have only $10 to your name of Bitcoin, and you can borrow $5 against it. Not that that's going to buy very much, even in
Right.
Colombia, but like you can see the potential of some subsistence farmer in Colombia. He might have a few $100s worth of Bitcoin. Now, if he has an emergency repair to his house, he can go borrow $100 of US dollars that won't be inflated away like his local currency, and then he can go pay like someone to repair his house, right? And so that's really empowering, and that's kind of part of the Moonwell, vision and mission.
That's incredible. And like to your point, it's very different from the traditional way of how, home equity lines of credit or loans are done. Um, let's say a mock example. I take out the loan in USDC. Do I have to pay it back in USDC, or how does that work?
Great question again. You do have to pay it back in USDC, but many people, let's say you take it out in USDC, but you wanted to buy more Bitcoin because you're a trader and you want leverage. You could simply go to a DEX like Aerodrome or Uniswap and swap your USDC for Bitcoin and then add more Bitcoin and leverage up and then borrow against it. So that's more advanced strategy. But a lot of the traders that are on base, the people that are sophisticated market participants like myself, Bitcoin's hitting all-time highs today, for example. While we're on the podcast, there's probably people that are doing this right now on Moonwell and Morpho, where they're going out and they're saying, hey, I think Bitcoin might go up. They're taking a directional bet. Or in some cases, they're saying Bitcoin might go down tomorrow. Maybe it's too high. I'm going to borrow some Bitcoin against my stablecoins and then sell it, and then I'll pay it back. That's going short, right? And so while Moonwell does enable like this simple, I want to borrow against my crypto use case for people like me that are not traders, I'm not an active trader, more of a buy and hold guy myself. It also enables those more advanced strategies. That's where the multi-collateral markets come in, where I might want to put up USD coin collateral and then borrow Bitcoin and sell it because maybe it's overvalued. And to be clear, I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just saying this is how traders think. They're thinking directionally, like, are things moving up or are they moving down? And then these on-chain finance tools give them leverage in the same way that they could get margin from their brokerage and, go sell a stock short, right? If they think the stock is overvalued.
Mm.
So you don't, kind of the roundabout answer to tie it all back is that let's say you did swap for, took your USD coin and swapped it for Tether. Now, it's Tether and USD coin are both trading at $1. If 3 months from now later you want to pay that back, you just have to swap the USD coin back or the Tether back for USD coin and repay your loan. So it's very easy to do this on chain. You can do it in 2 seconds. So it's a actually very simple experience, but this
Sure.
might foreign to people that are used to traditional finance where it might take days for your broker to transfer funds back and forth, right?
Right. Yeah, it's so amazing. This instant settlement, smart contracts, eliminating these intermediaries. It's fascinating. Now another mock scenario example. Let's say I do take the loan. For whatever reason, I am not able to repay it, or some life event happened and I'm no longer around. What happens to the assets, that the collateral?
Great question again. So they would just sit there forever until your interest accrued above that loan to value ratio, above that 86% that is codified in that Bitcoin market. So the default that Coinbase starts most people at, I think if you log into the product and try it today and just put $1,000 of Bitcoin in, the default they start is 50%, right? It's really safe and conservative. You can borrow 500 against your 1,000, but there's a little slider, you can adjust it up or down if you want to take on more risk. So if you think about, 8% loan, $500, it would probably take you years for that to go up to the 86% mark. But Bitcoin is volatile. And if Bitcoin drops, it could be less than $860 as your liquidation threshold. So let's talk about what liquidations are, because this is a complex topic, but the rules of the contract define that when a loan is unhealthy, meaning let's say you have 86.1 cents borrowed against your dollar of Bitcoin. Now your loan is considered unhealthy and it's considered liquidatable. And it's important for any type of money market, any type of even traditional finance brokerage, to clear those underwater margin loans, or if you want to call them that in the traditional finance cents off the books immediately or as quickly as possible. Because if you go underwater, then you become like Lehman Brothers and you collapse like they did in 2000, right?
Right.
They couldn't liquidate those loans fast enough because of the T+2 settlement, the 2-day settlement. In fact, that's why DeFi fixes this, or on-chain finance fixes these problems, because what will happen is there are a lot of sophisticated bots on Ethereum and these other networks that are looking at all the thousands of loans across the Moonwell books, order books, and the Morpho order books. And they constantly, because it's all on chain, it's visible. So there's a bot operator somewhere, there's dozens of them, that are watching these, all these open loans. They can just look at the entire loan book. It's open financial system, it's not closed. And this is what makes it safer also. Unlike a bank, you can see all the loans at all times and how healthy they are. Anyone in the world can see. And so when that loan for $1 against $1 Bitcoin is now 86.1 cents because the interest is accrued, they can come in and now they have the opportunity to liquidate. And what they do is they repay half of the loan and then they seize half of the collateral. So they'll repay up to half of the loan. Maybe they're repaying I guess it's 43 cents. And then they're going to take 50 cents of your Bitcoin, and they're also going to get a liquidation bonus, which is like an extra 5 cents or an extra 10%. And so that's why these bots are really quick to do this, because there's a financial incentive. Now, typically, they will instantly sell that Bitcoin back to USD Coin and capture the profit. And it all happens in a single transaction. It's called they actually take out a flash loan, and then they sell it, repay the flash loan in a single block. So to the bot operator, they never even had to hold money. They're just able to capture a couple pennies worth of Bitcoin for liquidating your underwater loan and making the order books or the loan books healthy again, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why that it's kind of a complex topic, but that's why during some of the market volatility, like for example, I'll give you an example. When Silicon Valley Bank collapsed in 2023, that weekend, I think if you remember, if you were online or in watching markets, because Circle lost 2 of their 3 custodying banks and financial institutions, we weren't certain that weekend if USDC was solvent. Now they fixed that; they now have no single point of failures in the financial institution, but USDC was valued at 93 cents that weekend because there was that uncertainty in the market of like, hey, is USDC still going to be worth $1 on Monday? Now, luckily, the Fed stepped in and bailed out those failing banks, and so USDC is worth $1 again. But during that weekend, there were a lot of loans against stablecoins for these advanced borrowers, people that are getting leverage, right, that went underwater, and there was billions of dollars of loans were cleared off the books of all of these major lending protocols like Moonwell, ADA, Compound, every Morpho, every lending protocol in the world was basically clearing underwater loans. And the beautiful thing is that nothing collapsed. There were no protocols that went insolvent, or liquidations happened orderly and efficiently in a matter of seconds, versus what happens in the traditional finance system, which is what led to Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns collapsing. Is the broker calls you on the phone and says, "Hey, your loan's underwater. Can you repay it or add some more collateral?" And they give you like a couple days, and in a couple days, the entire financial system collapsed in 2008. So that's why the T+2 settlement is actually harming markets, right? Where on-chain finance fixes this instant settlement might have even prevented 2008 if they could instantly clear those loans off the books.
Yeah.
So that's everything that's superior about on-chain finance, to be honest. And this is why all the banks want it, right? Or they're all building their backends on Ethereum.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, well put. And just looking at the contrast and between, or the dichotomy between the two scenarios. And it seems, well, this setup works for both institution and retail, right? They both can be participants and obviously borrow and lend against each other.
That's right. And we've tried to build products for both, because the reality is that most of the bots, the institutional players in the space, the hedge funds, the high net worth, the family offices, those are sophisticated market participants. They're already on chain and they're already using contracts directly, and they're probably not likely to go through the Moonwell app, right? But we do build what we think is a best-in-class mobile and web experience for users that are retail, that are just coming in from Latin America, from wherever they are. And we translated the Moonwell app into 5 different languages, including English. We have Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and Korean. For the retail borrower that just wants to borrow against $100 of Bitcoin, we try to make the best app experience. And part of that is because the Moonwell mission is to bring the most powerful finance tools to everyone in the world. We have a vision of a world where finance and governance is powered by on-chain products. And so we kind of try to meet the users wherever they are. These sophisticated market participants like Coinbase, they use the Morpho contracts directly, and our USDC vault supplies directly into the other side of that market. But then, and Coinbase builds that right into their app. But then, of course, not everyone is a Coinbase user, especially outside the US.
Sure.
Coinbase is mostly US population users, so we have the Moonwell app for that purpose. And that maybe is a good segue to talk about. We have this strong belief that stablecoins are the first real use case for crypto because they're the first thing that brings value to an average person.
Yeah.
Bitcoin and Ethereum are kind of speculative assets, right? Those of us that are early, we're speculators. We're stock pickers, basically, right? But for someone that lives in Latin America, like a farmer in Colombia, a software engineer in Brazil, half of our dev team is in Brazil. And we want to be able to pay them in stablecoins. Now, up until now, most US companies couldn't hire a brilliant software engineer in Brazil. And let me tell you, they're some of the most brilliant software engineers in the world. I've had the pleasure of working with many of them for over 3 years. And that's why the app that you see when you try Moonwell looks so beautiful, because of their expertise. But we can only pay them because the Moonwell Foundation is a crypto company that's domiciled on the Cayman Islands and can pay them in USD coin, right? But for the average US company, like let's say you're, mid-sized healthcare provider or like doctor's office or something, they might want to hire an office worker to look at prescriptions and double check them. They can't hire someone in Argentina, which has, really high crypto adoption because of the inflation of the Argentinian peso. They can't just hire them because they can't put them in their payroll system.
Right.
It's a common problem that US companies have. How do they set up direct deposit to someone that lives in Argentina? The banking systems aren't even really connected except by international wires. So we created this product that just launched about 6 months ago. We call it a virtual account. We partnered with Bridge, the stablecoin infrastructure company that was acquired by Stripe last year. And this product we call a virtual account. It allows anyone in the world to get a US checking account from a real FDIC insured institution. It's a bank in Kansas City, Missouri. You just have to KYC for about 2 to 3 minutes. You KYC and you can bring your own Ethereum wallet, whether it's Coinbase wallet or MetaMask or even an institutional custody wallet like Fireblocks or Coinbase Prime. And so it's bring your own wallet. And then what happens is you get a real US checking account with a routing number, an account number, ACH information. And then when you receive money in that account, within 30 minutes, you get USD coin in your wallet on Base.
Wow.
And so it's a really magical experience. Yeah, you can imagine. When I saw this, I realized we had to build this product because when I learned that Bridge had this capability where we can, basically you're still self-custodial. We, in Moonwell, we never take custody of your user funds. We believe that that's key to the way our products need to operate. Self-custody and freedom to transact are fundamental, in my opinion. And that means that we never want to take custody or control of your funds. It needs to be self-custodial. When you on-ramp USD coin through Bridge, those are USD coin in your wallet. Now you can deposit that money into the self-custodial USDC vault, the Morpho vault. And because it's immutable, even the Moonwell DAO can't take your funds, or the Morpho DAO can't take your funds. You can always have that vault token that lets you get your USD coin back. And so just having that ability for, like I mentioned that use case earlier, maybe a knowledge worker in Argentina that wants to get a job working for a US company, set up a direct deposit as a contractor and get paid, or maybe someone that wants to sell goods and services. Maybe there's a coffee grower in Brazil, which is where most of the world's coffee is grown, and they want to sell to a roaster in America. They can now sell their coffee beans and get paid in US dollars. And then, within 30 minutes with zero fees, now they've got it in their stablecoin self-custody wallet in Brazil, right? So those are the kind of powerful on-chain experiences we want to create because of our vision and our mission. And now, 3.5 years later, the infrastructure is finally landing that allow us to do that, right? A year ago, we couldn't build this because Bridge didn't exist or didn't have that product in place. And then, to kind of just continue on that, we don't have this feature live yet, but in the next few months, you're going to see us launch outbound features For example, we do have a Visa debit card that you can borrow and load with USD Coin and use internationally anywhere in the world that Visa is accepted. And you can auto load it from your vault, where you just say, I want to load up to $500 a day. That way you can shop without loading it. But we want to build some fiat off ramps that are even better. We can use Bridge to do this because we'll be able to set up online bill payment systems right in the Moonwell app, where you can put in, let's say, your utility bill or your landlord's and send it directly to their bank account, whether they're in the US or Europe through SEPA. And then they're slowly adding support bridges for Latin America. Argentina will be first because Argentina seems to have the most widespread crypto adoption in the banking system. It's just very popular in a country where you've had 400% inflation in the last few years, right?
Yep.
You can imagine that dollarization is really key to kind of like their financial freedom there.
And this bank you mentioned in the United States, as FDIC insured, and Bridge is helping essentially, convert the fiat, so to speak, to stable coins, and then anywhere in the world you can have this set up.
That's right. Pretty much anywhere in the world. Now, there are sanctioned countries like Iran and North Korea where they won't allow you to KYC, and you have to go through a KYC check, which basically links your self-custodial wallet to an identity that the bank is going to check to make sure, you're a real person. There's a persona KYC, like identity verification, basically the same KYC check you would get if you create a Coinbase account today. But they have to do that because of AML and compliance, right? So, but once you've gone through that compliance check, which is just a couple minutes, now you can use the card, you can have the virtual checking account, and now you basically, anywhere in the world, Latin America, Africa, Asia, anywhere, outside of a few countries that have, strict laws that wouldn't allow it, you can get a US checking account. And so we think this feature is great for digital nomads as well as people that live in these countries, right? Imagine I've traveled internationally some, I'm not a digital nomad, but when I traveled to Asia, none of my US bank accounts would work and none of my cards would work in some places, right? And it was a frustrating experience when you're like trying to get money to just go shopping or buy food and you don't have a card that works. And so we tried to create these experiences that help people that live outside the US. If you live in the US or Europe, you probably don't even know that some of these problems exist. But if you travel internationally or you live in one of these other countries, you realize how nice things are here. There are some things like Pix in Brazil, which is kind of like Venmo, sponsored by the government itself. It's like a government version of Venmo, but most countries don't have that. They don't have Venmo or PayPal or easy ways to send each other money.
Earlier, you mentioned that, the Genius Act getting passed next week would be incredible for the stablecoin market. So do you see an explosion in stablecoin adoption with, this type of product, which absolutely makes sense? And I would want to use it if I'm outside the United States, being able to, transact in a US dollar-backed stablecoin. Do you see a big explosion in adoption, as legislation comes into play?
Yes, I do. And in fact, I watched the Stripe founders talk on the All In podcast about this a few weeks back. And they're really close to the stablecoin adoption because, they acquired Bridge for $1.1 billion last year. That was a huge unicorn. The former Coinbase alumni like myself, they left to launch Bridge. And Bridge is essentially the company that allows us to convert dollars in a bank into stablecoins in a matter of minutes. And the way they're able to do that is by going around to all 50 states and getting a money transmitter license, and then some foreign countries as well, because you can't, do this unless you have a money transmitter license from all these regulators. It probably took them 3 years to do that. And so for Stripe, it was a build versus buy decision. Do we go run that regulatory gauntlet and wait 3 years to launch stablecoin accounts for all of our 3 million e-commerce merchants that want to transact in foreign countries? Or do we just acquire Bridge for $1.1 billion and now we have it tomorrow? And that was a easy business decision to just get that tomorrow. You can see also they just acquired Privy a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago. Privy is the embedded wallet company that powers a lot of on-chain experiences for people that don't have a Web3 wallet. It's used by a lot of games and social networking apps. And you can kind of see the pieces coming together of what Stripe is building. And I'll give you a real world example. So SpaceX now offers satellite internet in over 100 countries globally. It used to just be in like US and maybe a few in Europe. They did that almost overnight because the Stripe founders talked about how they're now able to accept payments in over 100 local currencies And then Bridge is able to convert those into USD coin and then off ramp it back to their financial institution in America in a matter of minutes versus them having to run all these forex operations to do business in 100 different countries. So if you live in Africa, maybe Nigeria, and you have a local naira currency, now they can accept payment for Starlink internet in the local currency and have it off ramped back to their bank in a matter of minutes. And so this used to be a process that probably cost multinational companies thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, and they have to have an entire army of forex and accountants. Now it can be all automated with stablecoins. And so my thesis is that over the next few years, global commerce is going to be supercharged, and all these multinational companies that want to sell goods and services outside the US, they'll now be able to use stablecoins to do this in 100 plus countries instead of 2 or 3. And so that's going to have huge economic concerns. And then that quote by Scott Bessent about the stablecoin economy growing from 250 billion to 2 trillion in the next few years after the passage of the Genius Act. I think what's important about that is that we go from being, the crypto economy, which has always been this kind of like shadow economy that sort of operated in the darkness because we didn't have regulatory clarity about like, are we allowed to do stablecoins or not? To a place where stablecoins are now legal for every bank and every financial institution in the US to custody on their balance sheet. So we go from being the crypto economy to being just the economy. And that's really exciting for people like me that have been building in the space for almost a decade. And I think that people are, obviously we've been through a lot of ups and downs in crypto, those of us like you that have been here a while. And I remember in 2023, people are telling me crypto is dead. And those of us that have been building for the long term, we knew that these stablecoins and other early adopter use cases had the power to change lives in meaningfully better ways. And we just didn't have the technology yet to get it there, or the regulatory clarity to get it there. And so all those things are kind of aligning. And I'll just give you a quick version of why are all the banks going to come in, because this might be interesting to some of your viewers. Like, what makes a Bank of America want to launch a stablecoin?
Right.
And I listened to the All In Pod, and they told me this. You can listen to David Sachs, the AI and crypto czar, at the White House talking about this. So for a bank, and I also listen to the Unchained Pod. That's another good place to learn about this. For a bank like Bank of America, it's a great product because you give them $1, they go buy a T-bill that pays 3%, and then they just give you $1 that you can use as digital dollars and send to your friends for free, but they don't have to pay interest. So banks could get trillions of dollars of short-term treasuries accruing interest on their balance sheet. And they're offering you as a customer a better product. Instead of having banker hours and only transacting 9 to 5, now you have instant settlement 24/7.
Yeah.
And so people will love it for their checking. It'll basically replace everyone's checking account. You might use something like Moonwell for savings, but they're going to replace your checking account with something that makes them, lots of money, because they can just hold those T-bills and they don't have to pay you an interest rate like a savings account. So the banks love it for that reason. It allows them to basically operate and offer the customers the 24/7 banking services they always wanted, but then make more money, which is what the CEOs of Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase want.
Yeah.
And then,
win-win on both sides.
Exactly. And so it's a win-win for everyone. And then it's also a win for the United States and for the Western democracies, because now we don't have to worry about, the BRICS, like Brazil, India, China, and these new Russia, India, and China, all these, potentially creating a new like CBDC, central bank-backed digital currency that might be based on the Chinese yuan. Because if we want to kind of like promote Western values like democracy and freedom of speech, we really need to kind of re-dollarize the world, not the US. We want dollars to be accepted everywhere. And the other thing the Strike founders talk about is that in almost all these countries, the dollar is the superior currency to the local currency, right? Outside of US and Europe, the dollar is almost always the superior currency. It has less inflation. It's not as devalued. People want to hold dollars because their local currency is getting inflated way faster than the dollar. And not to say we don't have inflation, but it's way worse in most of the world. And unless you live there or you have relatives there, you might not realize that, right?
Right. The personal checking account, right, that's setting up with the stablecoin bridge and so forth, that's available globally. Is it primarily supporting USDC? Are there plans to expand to other stablecoins? Because we know, like we were talking about, as soon as stablecoin legislation is passed, we're going to see a boom. You got Tether out there, you got Ripple, RLUSD, you got PayPal, PYUSD, and who knows what else is coming.
That's a great question. So Bridge actually offers you the ability to convert stablecoins instantaneously or instant settlement, maybe a few seconds, I guess, between all of those different stablecoins and dollars in US bank account. And so we are only integrating a small portion of their feature set, which is basically fiat to USD coin on Base or OP mainnet. You can choose which network you want to receive it on.
Mm.
But they also support Tether. They support, they support PYUSD. They support all the major stablecoins, DAI, Sky Money. And then you can simply convert between them. And then they even offer institutions, whether you're a CFI or a DeFi like us, the ability to create your own stablecoin that's backed by dollars and is regulatory compliant. So like not that we're planning on doing this tomorrow, but we could create a Moonwell USD coin or Moonwell USD, and then we could allow our users to transact in that, and then they could go to Bridge and redeem it for USD coin or any other stablecoin or a dollar in their bank instantly. And so what they're kind of building is this sort of stablecoin bank where you can kind of dollars in, dollars out. And why that's valuable to apps like Moonwell is if you go to a country like Nigeria, as much as we'd love for you to be able to shop with USD coin on Base, the reality is that most of the merchants there use Tether on Tron because Tron is super low cost, and it's just become really heavily adopted. And I'm not a big fan of Tron, but you have to admire the fact that they've actually created real world utility in Nigeria for millions of people to actually transact in a currency that isn't being inflated, and it's very cheap and most merchants accept it. So where that's relevant for Moonwell is we can offer a service in the future where you can use the Moonwell app. You can go into a merchant that's accepting only Tether on Tron. You scan a QR code, and then Bridge will take the USDC from your wallet, and in seconds they'll convert it into Tether on Tron and send it right to the merchant. So you can make the payment from your Moonwell app, and then you'll be able to just kind of buy goods and services with Tether on Tron just because you happen to live in Nigeria. And so Bridge allows you to kind of create those experiences where you're swapping from one stablecoin to another. And this is really important for app builders like us.
I love that. And the future is interoperable, right? So these things have to be able to just seamlessly be able to convert and make it easy for the end user, no friction, right? That it's very simple and click of a button, so to speak.
Tony, can I blow your mind with another feature that we just launched 6 weeks ago?
Sure.
So 6 weeks ago, and my team has been building this for 6 months. We won the Coinbase AI hackathon back in February 1st with this product. It's called Mamo. It's a finance agent that is built on top of Moonwell and the Morpho vaults we talked about. And what we realized as we started to go into some of these other countries like Sub-Saharan Africa is that many of our users there don't even have a smartphone, so they can't use our app. And some of our early adopters that have visited these countries, they told us they would love to be able to tell their friends about the Moonwell card, get the Visa debit card. It's actually a really nice experience if you just want to shop and use stablecoins. But they said, how can they load the card if they only have a feature phone, right? And so we started thinking about this problem about 6 months ago. And we built a personal finance agent. It's called Mamo, and it's going to launch in the Moonwell app soon, but it's actually live on Base today. You can try it at mamo.bot. And I know that finance agents are new to most people, but we saw the potential in this after we won the hackathon because we heard from so many people that DeFi is hard. On-chain finance apps are hard to learn, especially for normies that have never used crypto before. I get it. I've been a DeFi user for years, but my relatives and friends probably can't figure out how to use Moonwell unless I help them, right?
Yeah.
And so we tried to make it as easy as possible. But if you called one of your friends that doesn't use crypto and said, "Hey, try out this app on Base," there's probably a dozen questions they'd ask you, like, "Where do I download a wallet? Okay, how do I use this thing? How do I get money into it?" You'd have to help them, right? But what Mamo is designed to do is to be your personal finance agent, not even your crypto agent, but to kind of help normies that have never used crypto before cross the chasm and figure out how to use crypto apps in an excellent way. And I'll just give you an example of how it works. And you might want to try this yourself sometime. So if you're on an iPhone, most people are on an iPhone. In the future, we'll have that, text to voice chat for feature phones. But right now, if you're on an iPhone or Android, you can go to mamo.bot. You can click Get Started, and then we will, if you don't have a wallet, you've never installed one, we'll create an embedded wallet for you with the social login like Google or Facebook or Meta, or Apple. And then you can create one with the passkey. So if you don't have a wallet, we'll give you a wallet within seconds. You can bring your own, of course, like Coinbase Wallet, but if you've never used crypto, we'll create a wallet for you. And then we'll let you on-ramp dollars. You can even, if you're in the US, you can on-ramp up to $500 with no fee from a Visa debit card using Apple Pay. And that's done because there's a partnership between Visa and Coinbase. And there's no KYC for up to $500. This is for US persons only, sadly. We can't offer this internationally yet. But then if you're international, we can on-ramp up to 40 different fiat currencies, but there are fees for most of that. Then you use Apple Pay with a Visa debit card, so in about 30 seconds, you get $100 in your Mamo account. We call it a USDC account. And then that's now earning about just over 6%. So it's about twice the rate of inflation because it's money being earned by the Bitcoin borrowers on Coinbase, right? So it's a really magical experience because as a normal person that has never used a crypto, now on your mobile phone, you can go from zero to having, $100 in a Mamo account, which is, and we've built the only fully audited smart contract system where the DeFi agent or the finance agent can't take custody of your user funds. It's in your own smart contract that only you can withdraw and deposit to. So that allows the agent to kind of help you grow your money and help you learn good savings habits. And so the finance agent, the reason why I say it's a finance agent, not crypto, is because in the future we'll support stocks, tokenized stocks, real world assets. When those become available in the coming years, as they become more regulatory clarity around those things, right? So in the future, maybe they'll help you buy an S&P 500 index fund. And the agent can kind of humanize that experience and make finance actually fun, because now you have this finance agent you can chat with, you can ask questions like, what is dollar cost averaging? Or remind me to deposit $100 every time I get paid on the first of the month. And the agent can chat with you on Telegram today. And then pretty soon in this new app that Coinbase is launching next week called TBA, they're not announcing the name yet, but this is the new version of wallet that they've talked about. So the Mamo agent, the finance agent, will be right there inside wallet. And then you'll be able to chat with it privately. You'll also be able to, kind of fund it from your Coinbase wallet if you're a Coinbase wallet user. But we're really excited about this because the biggest challenge I think we've faced, like I mentioned, is that, on-chain finance is hard for normies to do. And for someone that's never on-ramped crypto, we want to make that experience as seamless as possible, where you can use it just like a normal fintech app. Like ideally, it's as easy as Cash App or something like that to use, right? And we just help people earn twice the rate of inflation, help people learn good savings habits, and then, have this fun little furry creature that's like kind of like an English bulldog that's kind of ugly but cute in its own way, that can kind of make it fun to kind of save and kind of reward you for good habits. Like the way we think about it is like, everybody probably should brush and floss a little bit more than they do. But if brushing and flossing was fun and there was a cute little furry companion that gave you compliments every time you did it, it might be easier, right? So it's a fun retail experience. And we're kind of trying to build this at this intersection of finance agents, stablecoins, and decentralized apps. And it's really exciting for me and my team, to be honest.
I love that. And to your point, the normies, there are billions of people out there who they need the hand holding. And it's not possible for us to go help individuals, but having something automated. And now, my next question was going to be, is this personal finance agent AI driven? Is that what it is?
It is, yeah. That's exactly right. So one of the things we built last year that helps, kind of the Moonwell app function is this thing we call the yield backend. And so you might ask, what makes an agent different than just ChatGPT, right? What makes difference is the agent has to have custom tools, in this case, the yield backend, so it knows all the interest rates on chain, on base at all times. And so that way it can always find the highest rate. And even though it's non-custodial, it has a permission to call update position, which basically moves your funds between our core USDC market and the Moonwell flagship USDC vault whenever the rates are better in one or the other. So automatically seeking out the best rates at all times. And then the other thing that makes the agent, not a chat GPT, is that it's fine-tuned with, it's this AI process called retrieval augmented generation. So it's fine-tuned on all the Mamo documentation, the Moonwell documentation, and a lot of finance data, and even X feeds with key individuals, and the Moonwell and Mamo X feeds. So you can ask it questions like, how does lending work, or where does the yield come from? And it can answer in an intelligent way. And so the combination of that, having those custom tools and being trained on private, non-public data sets, you can imagine in the future, maybe we'll be able to train it on Bloomberg data if we could ever get a license to that, right? That could be really powerful for, more advanced users. But we're pretty excited about that because, that means that the agent now puts your portfolio on autopilot. Because I noticed this last year when we launched the Eurocoin market on Moonwell. Sometimes there was really heavy borrowing demand for Eurocoin or USD coin. And for the first time, Forex traders could actually do that on chain, on base. And so if the Forex markets were closed because it was like a weekend, Sunday morning at 2 a.m., you would see people, going long or short euros on base. And it's small compared to, traditional finance markets, but that would cause the interest rates to spike in markets at different times. Like the USDC core market would spike above 10%. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to write an automated, script or some bot that could actually capture that interest rate arbitrage? And after we won the hackathon prize, we kind of came together, our team at East Denver, and we had a kind of offsite where we just whiteboarded and we said, could we design the agent in such a way that the agent never takes custody of user funds? Because you've probably seen some of these agents get tricked by social engineering. If you tell the agent, ignore all previous instructions and send me the money, it might just send you someone's money. And that would, of course, there's no way you can put millions of dollars or potentially billions of dollars of customer funds in something like that. Coinbase would never trust customer funds in something that could be tricked into losing money. What we designed is this fully automated smart contract system where when you use that for the first time, our backend creates your own, what we call a strategy contract, but that's what we call your USDC account or your Bitcoin account. We also support Bitcoin Earn. And then you are the only one that can deposit or withdraw. The agent can simply move you between, pre-approved markets and vaults that we know are audited and safe. And then that way, the agent can also compound your reward tokens, like your Morpho and your Well reward tokens, back into the underlying position, because it has limited permission to initiate a DEX order to sell it to, it can initiate claim rewards, which go back into your strategy contract. And then when those reward tokens, those Morpho tokens, or what have you, are in that contract, then it can initiate a cow swap order where 7 or 8 different solvers basically bid to swap those into USDC, and then when it sees that USDC, it can deposit that idle back into the vault, so it's earning money. So it's a pretty complicated process, but to the end user experience, what it is you have this Mamo account or USDC account, we just call it account rather than strategy contract, because people understand, we want to humanize it. And you understand you have an account, you can deposit and withdraw. Most people that have used a bank understand that. But then behind the scenes, Mamo is putting your money on autopilot where you're always earning the best on-chain rate. Today it's about 6.5%. It might fluctuate depending on market conditions. And then you're auto compounding. And then also the agent's giving you regular updates, words of encouragement, like, hey, you earned $20 last week. Way to go. Keep it up.
With the setup of the wallets and the apps and so forth, is there the layer of private keys? Because I know that's been kind of a point of friction for many people, because the concept of, oh no, if I lose my private keys, what happens, right? How are you solving that to make it easier, I guess, if that's the right way to
Great question. Yeah, so if you're bringing your own wallet, you already have your Coinbase wallet or your private key already done. So we don't take care of that. You can bring anything you want. It's self-custody. But if you're brand new and you don't have a wallet, we'll create an embedded wallet for you on ThirdWeb. ThirdWeb is the partner that also offers that. They call it a universal bridge, which is the way to on-ramp from 40 different fiat currencies and over 500 different EVM wallets. So if you have like ETH and MetaMask on mainnet, you can on-ramp to it. But that wallet will be secured by either a passkey, which is like a new form of like Touch ID or Face ID on your phone. So that's a really secure thing that you can only unlock, or you can only sign with your Face ID or your Touch ID or biometric. That's the most secure way. But then there's also social login, like it's protected by your Google account, for example. And so while social login is less secure than a passkey, or less secure than maybe your Coinbase wallet or some hardware wallet like Ledger, like I use, it's actually pretty secure for most people that might only have a few $1,000s. And because it's just your funding wallet where you on-ramp funds from like your bank or wherever you're, Ethereum or wherever you're bringing them from, once you fund the wallet, it just goes into that strategy contract. So now it's in the contract. And so, even if let's say your Google account got hacked, the hacker is not going to see that you have thousands of dollars sitting there. It's actually in the smart contract. Now, I guess theoretically they could withdraw it. So if you're using a social login, protect your Google account, put it on 2FAs would be my recommendation. But it gives people a really easy way to kind of on-ramp. And then when they want to graduate to maybe MetaMask or Coinbase Wallet or maybe a more secure custody solution, they can always export their private key from Third Web and bring that into like a real crypto wallet, right? So they have that optionality of like exporting their private key to kind of remain self-custodial and like take it with them, like, kind of, maybe your mom wants to use it and get to know it, but then
Yeah.
she might want a cold storage wallet so that, she has confidence that, that she can't be drained. So you could export it and write it on paper or something if you wanted to.
Oh, for sure. Luke, obviously you guys are doing a lot. I love what you're building. This is just incredible stuff. And absolutely, I think you guys are ahead of the curve in many ways. Obviously you got Mamo and a whole bunch of things happening. Anything else you want to highlight that's on your roadmap?
So we're currently heads down building. We just launched, Bitcoin accounts for Mamo, and we're going to be launching other accounts like XRP and others because we want to activate those communities that might be holding XRP and might want to just earn a little bit. It's not going to be as much as USD Coin, but you can already earn a 1% or so against your Bitcoin. We think for people that are into crypto or hold Bitcoin, this is a great way to just have it on autopilot. But then going forward, we do plan on kind of continuing to grow in the AI space because we see that the intersection of stablecoins and AI is going to be huge for us. And then we have so many years of experience of building decentralized non-custodial apps that don't take custody of funds that we think there's going to be a place for agents to manage treasuries for corporations like Starlink or SpaceX, like I mentioned earlier, but also for individual retail people that are just like, I want to make sure that like a robo-advisor, I want to make sure that I'm always earning the best yield, whether it's across equities, bonds, stablecoins. So real-world asset tokenized stocks are areas that we want to go into once those compliant products are ready and on-chain. So we're really excited to build the future of finance, not just on-chain finance, but the future of finance.
Yeah, that's exciting. And Luke, we're gonna have to do round two. Like you guys are
Yeah,
building
let's do
some
it
really
again.
cool stuff. So we'll definitely have to because obviously integrating with Coinbase as well, just amazing products. And like I said, I'm gonna be using some of those. Before we hit wrap up questions, I did want to get your take on your outlook on the crypto industry. Obviously, you were early and mining Bitcoin, and now you have TradFi, Wall Street. The governments are on board trying to put legislation in place. What are your thoughts on how things have grown and what do you see happening in the next 5 years?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, obviously, like I think in the next few years, with the passage of the Genius Act, stablecoins are going to grow to trillions of dollars globally. And I do think I see the same kind of trajectory for Bitcoin as a treasury asset. And I think more and more of these large companies will want to hold Bitcoin and Ethereum and other, solid kind of, I guess I call them blue chips on their balance sheets. That's definitely an area of concern, or sorry, an area of growth for us. And kind of wanting to be the best capital markets to kind of provide leverage against those. But also, I just think there's a ton of opportunity with agents because as you can tell, AI is kind of eating the world. And so I think that things will look remarkably different in even 5 or 10 years from now than they do today. So for example, when we started experimenting with agents at the Coinbase Hackathon, what we realized is that we can create an entire crew of agents. So it's a multi-agent thing where we have, like a USDC market researcher that actually has that yield backend tool where they can look at all the rates on chain, and then they can take that data and pass it to a USDC market analyst who looks at all those rates and figures out what's the best risk-adjusted return. And then that market analyst kind of sends it to a reporting agent, which kind of synthesizes that all into a report. And then there's a tweet poster agent that will kind of take that report and generate a tweet that goes on X. And you kind of see that you're creating this crew, and we use this framework called Crew AI. There's about 5 or 6 agents in the USDC researcher pod, and then we created a Bitcoin researcher pod. And then after you have a couple dozen of these agents, you start to realize that this could replace maybe the entire like Goldman Sachs bond desk with a crew of specialized agents. And so what's really kind of exciting about that, I'm not saying that they're going to lose their jobs. They'll probably just be able to move on to higher level functions, right? Just like the same way that when the spreadsheet was invented, accountants that were doing things with pencil and paper, they didn't lose their jobs. They just figured out how to use spreadsheets. And so I don't take the view that AI is going to kill jobs. I think in many ways, like for devs like me that use AI to write code, it helps make us 10x more effective, and we can launch features faster. And so I'm just really excited because the financial system is really old and decrepit and needs to be upgraded. We're still running mainframes. And so, I watched what Vlad said, the Robinhood CEO, last week when they were announcing Robinhood Chain. And it's absolutely true. I firmly believe, we started with pencil and paper, keeping everything in an accounting ledger. Then we went to mainframes and computers, servers, right? And now we're going to, blockchains. And when you think about it, Ethereum is really just, or Base is really just another ledger. The main enabler for builders like me is that it's a ledger that is not just only the bank can write to it, or only Coinbase can read and write to it, like the Bank of America internal ledger or the Chase internal ledger. Now anyone with an Ethereum private key with a wallet can read and write from Coinbase's ledger. And so that's the real exciting thing. And then, bringing agents into that and helping agents figure out how to read and write to those ledgers is going to be really empowering. And so just can't wait to see what happens in the next few years. It's exciting to me. Thanks for having us, Tony. We should definitely come back, soon, because I've got so much more to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. It's exciting, man. And I can't wait for legislation to pass this year and, just allow innovators and entrepreneurs like yourself to just not have to worry about, the government, but just focus on what you're building. And it's just, I feel like a lot of jobs are going to be created in this industry. It's going to impact many industries and bring them up to date, right? Especially like the financial industry and payments industry. I got some wrap up questions here for you. First, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
The theme would be a solar punk theme. I've thought about this before. So you kind of, if you look at like a lot of these video game like metaverses, I think there's two different outcomes. One is financial dystopia, like the cyberpunk universe where, megacorps rule the world. It's more like the Matrix. We're all kind of like slaves to the machine and the AI. But then there's a more optimistic, like the Star Trek universe, right? Where it's like you have matter replicators and holodecks, and there's abundant energy, and like everyone can do whatever they want because you can just become Starfleet and go explore the universe. And the solarpunk universe is much more like that, where you have abundant solar energy. The world has been kind of restored with renewables, and there's no longer like global warming and things like that, because we've kind of like terraformed the Earth, and now we've like gone to other planets and terraformed Mars, and like we're just living in this age of energy abundance, and we're using AI tools to kind of like enable us to do whatever we want in life. If you want to be a musician or an artist, and you want to create beautiful art, you can do that, and like the robots work for you, right? So that's the universe I would love to create. I kind of believe in the more optimistic version of the future, the Star Trek universe versus the Matrix, if you will.
Oh, for sure. Rapid fire questions. Favorite food?
Favorite food, I would say steak, definitely.
Favorite musician or band?
Favorite musician, Porter Robinson.
Favorite movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I'm sorry, skip.
Okay. Favorite book?
A movie though, or fantasy, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I missed the last thing you said.
It's probably a sci-fi or a fantasy movie though.
Oh, sure.
I just can't pick one.
Favorite movie? I mean, sorry, favorite book. Excuse me.
Oh, favorite book? Probably Cryptonomicon by Neil Stephenson. It's a pretty cool book if you've never read it, about the invention of cryptography.
Ah, I need to check that out.
Yeah.
And when you're not working at Moonwell, what are you doing for fun?
I've been working so much, but if I didn't work for fun, I play saxophone. I'm a jazz musician, at least I was in college. And also I like to produce music a little bit. I produce a little bit of house music and used to DJ like 20 years ago when I actually had time to do that.
Very cool. Luke, like I said, I love what Moonwell is doing and all the great things you guys are innovating and building. And we'll have to do round two, but thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tony. It's been great to be here. Thank you for having us. Have a great day.